Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon in our second of the New to Vermont Lunch Series.
Bienvenidos a todos. Bienvenidos a todos. Gracias por venir. Gracias por estar aquí con nosotros en nuestro segundo día de nuestra serie de almuerzo.
I'm going to do some tech housekeeping. We are in Zoom meeting at the moment, as you may notice.
Voy a hacer un poquito de decirles cómo funciona esto de Zoom. Estamos en una junta de Zoom.
Please keep yourself muted at all times.
Por favor, no sé cómo se dice. Por favor, pónganse en mute durante este tiempo.
We will be taking questions in the chat box. Please limit what you are saying in the chat to questions for our panelists, which will be addressed at the end of the session.
Vamos a contestar las preguntas en el chat box, pero primero, no queremos que haya discusión por ahí, solo van a ser preguntas que luego vamos a filtrar y regresarlas y preguntarle a los panelistas que las respondan.
We feel really honored to have Christy Carretero interpreting. If you noticed already, give us a little wave, Christy.
Hoy estamos muy felices de que Christy esté aquí interpretando.
So when you're speaking, please keep your sentences nice and short. And Christy will raise her hand to cut you off if she needs you to stop, so she can interpret for our audience.
Y por favor, si van a hablar, por favor, dejen sus oraciones cortas, y si no, les voy a cortar yo haciendo así esta mano para decirles que no puedo interpretar tan rápido y que es para nuestra audiencia que habla español y no inglés. Y al revés, también voy a interpretar de español a inglés.
I'm gonna now hand it over to Kate of Community Asylum Seeker Project, who is our lovely host for this afternoon, and I'm really excited to have her. So take it away, Kate.
I'm so excited to be here and appreciate the invitation.
Voy a introducir a Kate, que es nuestra facilitadora de nuestra junta y estamos muy felices de que esté aquí. Bienvenidos a todos.
Thank you. Welcome to the Southern Vermont Economy Summit second session in the New Vermont Lunch Series titled New Americans to New Vermonters.
Bienvenidos a nuestra segunda serie de almuerzo que se llama Nuevos Vermonters y de Nuevos Americanos a Nuevos Vermonters.
My name is Kate Peralberquam of the Community Asylum Seekers Project in Brattleboro, and I will be your host today.
Me llamo Kate Peralberquam y de Community Asylum Seekers Project en Brattleboro y voy a ser tu facilitadora hoy.
CASP is a small nonprofit that supports people in the process of seeking asylum in the United States.
CASP es una organización muy pequeña que ayuda a las personas que están en el proceso de pedir asilo aquí en los Estados Unidos.
I want to take a minute to thank our lunch series sponsors, Green Mountain Power and Vermont Electric Power Company.
Quiero tomarme un momento para agradecerles a nuestros sponsors de esta serie, que son Green Mountain Power y
Vermont Electric Power Company.
Vermont Electric Power Company.
Thank you, Christy. Before we get started, just a little teaser of what's coming up next in the program.
Antes de que empecemos, les voy a decir un poco sobre lo que estamos esperando.
I hope you were able to attend the prior session, Reframing Wealth, Vetting Our Values.
Espero que hayan podido atender la sesión anterior de esta, que se llama Reframing Wealth and Vetting Our Values.
All sessions are being recorded, so if you missed it, you can watch it later.
Todos están grabados, entonces si se la perdieron, la pueden ver luego.
Next up at 2:00 is Applying an Equity Lens to Vermont, Structural Solutions for Structural Problems with Susanna Davis, who is the Executive Director of Racial Equity for the state.
A las 2 va a hablar Susanna Davis, que es la directora ejecutiva de
Equidad racial.
equidad y raza en el estado de Vermont.
In today's session, we are going to be focusing on attracting newcomers who hail from outside of the United States.
En esta sesión nos vamos a enfocar en atraer a personas que viven fuera de los Estados Unidos, aquí en Vermont.
Workforce demand is as high as ever, with regional jobs unfilled in many sectors.
La demanda de los trabajadores está subiendo y subiendo más cada día y necesitamos a personas nuevas que vengan aquí a Estados Unidos, a Vermont.
With a new administration that's restarting immigration and the governor's stated commitment, how can Vermont's Gateway region take this new opportunity to provide a welcoming place for new Vermonters to land?
Con esta nueva decisión o puesto del gobernador, ¿cómo podemos hacer que las personas que vienen de fuera de Estados Unidos se sientan bienvenidas aquí en Vermont?
I want to introduce our panelists, and maybe when I introduce you, you can wave. We
Voy a
have
introducir a los panelistas y cuando te introduzca, por favor, sí,
nos saluden.
nos saludan.
We have Myra Tungatorova from SIT World Learning. We
Tenemos
have
a
Dora Urugeni from the Community Asylum Seekers Project. We have Beatriz Gutierrez, also from the Community Asylum Seekers Project. We have Samba Diallo from the AIDS Project of Southern Vermont. And thanks again to Christy Carretero of the BDCC for interpretation. So I have several questions for the panelists, and I think most of those questions have been shared with you.
Tengo unas preguntas para los panelistas y creo que esas preguntas ya se las hemos compartido a los
That said, if in answering one of those questions, our conversation goes into another area, I think that's also fine. So please feel free to answer in whatever way feels best to you.
Y al contestar las preguntas, el tema cambia. Está bien si contestas más en este tema, solo para seguir que la conversación sea más orgánica.
To consider first, what is something about Vermont or living in Vermont that you struggle to explain to family and friends who live elsewhere, either in other states or outside of the country?
¿Qué es algo sobre Vermont o sobre vivir en Vermont que es difícil de explicar a tu familia o amigos que viven en otros estados o en otros países?
Is there anybody that wants to start?
¿Alguien que quiera empezar?
Or shall I call on Betty?
Ok, en lo personal, pues primeramente yo agradezco el que Estados Unidos me haya abierto sus puertas.
First of all, in the personal, I want to thank the United States for opening its doors to me.
Posiblemente al principio me sentí un poco confundida por,
At the
no
beginning,
estar,
I was mostly confused.
por estar en un lugar donde pues no se habla el mismo idioma.
Especially for being in a place where I don't speak the same language.
Un poco las costumbres diferentes en cuestión de la comida.
There's a lot of differences in the cultural differences in the food.
Las leyes en cuestión a permisos de trabajo son un poco complicados.
The laws around work permits are also a little complicated.
Yo entiendo que este es un proceso, el estar aquí, pero que también había de haber un poco de facilidad para obtener pronto el permiso.
I understand that it's a process to be here, but I think that it should be easier to get a work permit.
Aunque bueno, contamos con el apoyo de CAS, tanto en ayuda económica como pago de una renta.
But happily, I mean, it's good that we have HASP to support us financially and also with rent.
Pero aquí la idea sería tener uno sus propios ingresos para poderse uno sostener.
here the idea is that we have our own way of making money so we can support ourselves.
Aunque es cómodo que Cass nos mantenga, pero no mucho.
Although it's very comfortable that CAST supports us, but not too much.
Creo que esa sería mi única respuesta.
I think that's my answer.
Gracias, Betty. Are there other panelists who want to answer this question about what's difficult to explain about Vermont?
¿Hay algún otro panelista que quiera contestar la pregunta?
Mayra?
Yeah, sometimes it's difficult to explain that that you have internet problem in some part of Vermont, especially when you're traveling, because many people feel like it's very high speed internet in the United States. And also when you talk about Vermont and you say, oh, it's a very popular maple syrup that people put on everything. And also when talking about some infrastructure in Vermont, and it's very a monoethnic state, so not much diversity here.
Es difícil hablar con mis amigos y de otras personas fuera de este país y de este estado sobre la rapidez del internet, porque siempre piensan que en Estados Unidos hay muy buen internet en todas partes y no es cierto, especialmente aquí en Vermont. También muchos saben sobre la Maple, que lo ponemos en todo. Y la infraestructura también es un poco difícil de explicarle a otros amigos, y también que no es un lugar muy, muy diverso aquí.
And also when I'm talking about bridges, there are tons of covered bridges.
Y que hay muchos puentes.
They're beautiful, and it's very probably typical, Vermont.
Muy bellos y son muy típicos de Vermont.
And when talking about, animals like wildlife, but you can see in your yard sometimes bears or bobcats or deer, so can be also very, not expected for at least people from my country when I talk about my experiences in Vermont.
Y hay muchos animales que uno no espera ver en su patio, por ejemplo, osos o otro tipo de animales que es muy difícil de explicar a personas de otro país o de mi país específicamente.
Thank you.
Okay.
Dora, did you have a hand up?
Yeah, so one thing that I struggle explaining to families and friends, well, first of all, thanks for inviting us. It's so nice to have this really, platform to talk about us and what we live here in Vermont. So I will not really go back to what other people said, but I will add, it's so hard to explain to people, especially families and friends, about there is no African food store. So if you want really African food, you'll go to Massachusetts or New York.
Sí, gracias por tenernos aquí, primero, y dejarnos hablar sobre nuestras historias. Segundo, no quiero decir algo que las personas ya han dicho. Y es algo muy difícil de explicar a mis amigos y mi familia, es que aquí no hay comida africana. No hay una tienda donde pueda yo ir a comprar comida mexicana o africana aquí en Vermont. Tengo que ir a Massachusetts.
Yeah, I struggle telling them that I won't really say Vermont, the whole state, but in particular Brattleboro, that it's not as other city they have seen in America, like big town malls. There is no mall. So if you want a mall, you'll go to Keene or Massachusetts again.
También es difícil explicarles que aunque estamos aquí en América y en Estados Unidos y en Vermont, bueno, específicamente aquí en la parte sur de Vermont y en Brattleboro, no hay un centro comercial grande. Tienes que ir a otro lugar como Keene o Massachusetts.
Yeah, another thing is transportation.
Y otra cosa es
Yeah, I don't know if I really lack information, but people are used to Uber, taxi cabs, New York or else places. So they asked me, how do we get to where you are, to Brattleboro?
y hay personas, por ejemplo, no puedo explicarles cómo llego a lugares porque aquí no hay Uber, no hay taxi cab. Entonces siempre me preguntan, ¿cómo llegas a ese lugar donde vives, Brattleboro?
Yeah, I have like friend in Portland, Maine. It has been a year. They have promised to come here, but still they don't know. Do we drive? How long? Do we take a bus? The way they take a bus from Maine to Massachusetts, Boston, it's like 2 hours. So I will try to figure out how do they get to me? How do they get here? So the bus, you have to go to Massachusetts and then come here. Oh, it's so hard, really.
Tengo unos amigos en Portland, Maine, y siempre hemos estado intentando buscar cómo pueden venir aquí desde hace un año. Y no hay camión, tienen que manejar y no sabemos muy bien cómo sería la forma más fácil para que ellos lleguen aquí. O sea, hay camión de Portland, Maine a Massachusetts, a Boston, y eso solo toma 2 horas, pero está lejos de aquí. Y no hay cómo llegar a Brattleboro.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dora. Samba, did you want to weigh in on this question?
Yeah, almost similar to what Dora said. For my friends back home in Mali, they don't believe me when I tell them we don't have any skyscrapers here or any tall buildings like that. So they ask me, but this is not what we see on TV. Are you sure you are in America?
Yes.
A mis amigos es muy difícil explicarles que aquí no hay edificios muy altos y que no se parece como en las películas o en las fotos que vemos de Estados Unidos. Este lugar no es así.
And also, every time I get a chance to go back home, of course, everybody will ask me, oh, bring me this, bring me that. And when I tell them no, they don't understand how. And then I have to tell them how hard it is for me to even get to the airport in JFK, first of all, and also how hard I have to work for the little money I get. And I just don't have enough to bring everybody something.
Y cada vez que voy a casa siempre me piden, tráeme esto, tráeme aquello, y no entienden que primero es muy difícil para mí llegar al aeropuerto que me lleva a mi país. Tengo que ir hasta New York, JFK, y luego después también es muy difícil porque no gano mucho dinero haciendo lo que hago, entonces no puedo estar comprando las cosas que me piden que traiga.
Thank you, Samba. Those are all great informative answers, and I appreciate people offering them.
Gracias por compartir. Estas todas son unas respuestas muy, muy informadoras. Gracias por compartir con nosotros.
Sorry, Christy. From outside of the United States, it's difficult to explain that not all of the United States is a monolith.
Es muy difícil explicarle a las personas fuera de Estados Unidos que no todo en Estados Unidos es igual, no todos los lugares son iguales.
Let me just, because I want to get more of your answers, let me ask you our next question.
Voy a preguntar la segunda pregunta.
What were some of your first impressions when you arrived in Southern Vermont? What appealed to you, and what, if anything, made you feel alienated?
¿Cuáles fueron tus primeras impresiones cuando llegaste a Vermont? ¿Qué te gustó y hay algo que te hizo sentir como que no pertenecías?
Dora, you're smiling. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I will start while other people are thinking about answers. So when I came first to Vermont, I didn't see young people. And I wondered
Cuando vine a Vermont no vi personas jóvenes.
So I saw like, I don't know how we'll call them. I don't like call people old, but I wondered where their kids and, or siblings. So I saw really, elders. And
no vi muchas personas jóvenes ni niños y me preguntaba dónde están. Solo veo personas, no quiero decirles viejas, pero no veía muchos niños ni muchos jóvenes.
And I will not lie to you, it was almost white people.
Y no voy a mentir, parecía solamente ser que eran personas blancas.
What else?
Thank you, Dora. Do you want to say more about that? Or should we come
Yeah,
back?
maybe the other one will come.
Okay. Betty?
Ok. Bueno, yo llegué un 4 de diciembre del 2019.
I arrived on December 4th,
Ok.
2019.
Está bien. Y para mí fue la cosa más bonita, más impresionante, porque llegué y estaba cayendo nieve, pero, o sea, a mí eso me encanta. Entonces,
It was I thought it was the most beautiful scenery, the most wonderful, magical thing, because I arrived here and it was snowing.
Yo la nieve y las casas, yo las había visto en película, nunca en persona. Entonces,
I've only seen snow and houses like that on TV, on movies, never in person.
Y cuando yo pedí ayuda por parte de CAS, anteriormente había otra administración.
When I asked for help from CASP, previously there was another administration.
Se me complicó un poco entrar yo que me ayudaran con mi caso.
It was really hard for them to help me with my case. It was hard for them to get them to help me with my case.
Pero al final agradezco porque fui recibida en esta asociación.
But at the end, I am grateful because I was brought into the organization.
Después de que me recibió la organización, me sentí como en otro mundo y dije, creo que de aquí soy.
After they took me in, I felt like in a whole other world, and I felt like I belonged here.
Solamente agradezco.
Yeah, that's all. I just want to thank you for the
Y
opportunity.
nosotros a ti. Samba?
Yeah. So when I first came here, I came here when I was in high school, so I was younger.
Cuando llegué aquí, yo estaba en prepa, entonces era muy joven.
And just seeing the place and the scenery, I was really excited how open it was, and I could go outside and run around.
Y vi y estaba todo muy abierto, me encantó. Podía salir y correr por todas partes.
But when I started school, I quickly realized how hard it was from anybody who's not a Vermonter or who doesn't fit into that character of what a Vermonter is. So it was really tough for me to make any friends.
Cuando empecé la escuela me di cuenta que era muy difícil para alguien que no era de Vermont y que no parecía como que era de Vermont, sino que no tenía sus características de una persona de Vermont. Por ejemplo, era muy difícil hacer amigos.
And besides the ESL teachers, what they had at the high school, I think maybe only 2 at the time. All the other professors did not even make me feel welcome. I even got kicked out of PE just because I did not know about American football.
Solo había 2 personas que hacían ESL en la escuela y en ese tiempo, y hasta me sacaron de la clase por no saber jugar fútbol americano.
Thank you for that, Samba, for sharing that with us. Myra, did you have an answer to this question that you wanted to share?
Yeah, and my first impression was when I came as a student to SAT, and of course it was like very welcoming, friendly community, very diverse.
Cuando primero llegué a SAT,
and when you see people from different countries and different races, later on, it was different when you're living here. But yeah, first impression was like, wow, beautiful campus, beautiful people, friendly, and also how your faculty was, welcoming you, opening up their doors to their houses, and so it was very great experience. And
Cuando primero llegué me sentí muy
by the time
bienvenida.
when I'm start living in the United States, you feel that you are still foreigner, and especially I'm the probably all Kazakh citizen around for miles, and sometimes language barrier or accent, just you feel like you are it's not easy for you to navigate around, but still my impression that people are very friendly here. They can wave from their cars, and sometimes they can ask questions, not like that, like how are you, but and they mean, and they're interested in your life. That's it.
Cuando primero llegué me sentí muy bienvenida porque era estudiante en SIT. Y los profesores, había muchas personas de otros países y de otros lugares, y sentía que todos eran muy, muy simpáticos, y los profesores nos dejaban ir a su casa y todo. Pero luego cuando pasé de ser estudiante ahora al mundo real de Vermont, me sentí más, me sentí fuera de lo normal. No hablaba mucho inglés, eso fue muy difícil. Había muchos católicos, parecía, y no era algo que yo hacía. Pero siento que las personas aquí son muy simpáticas, que les importa cómo me siento. Siempre me dicen hola, me saludan, y me preguntan cómo estoy y si les importa la verdad, y no solo me preguntan por preguntarme.
Thank you so much for that, Myra. Dora, you want to add on to that?
So my first impression were two ways. First at SIT, because I came as a student. So it was a very welcoming place with different students, internationals, and yeah, all kind of, culture and origin. So it was friendly.
Llegó aquí a SIT como un estudiante y también se sintió como que había mucha diversidad, había muchas personas de otros lugares, de otras culturas.
Yeah, but because I was living off campus.
Pero como vivía fuera del campus.
The most struggle came from not knowing where to go. So from home, where do I go? I don't know the streets. So because here in Africa, we don't have really street names. We don't turn right, turn left. So you tell somebody where you're going, you say, okay, maybe you see this big house, you see a big tree, or you pass 5 houses, my house is the 6th. So then I say, where do I go from here? My first day of school, I got lost. From Western Brattleboro, I went to, as if you're going to former Marlboro College instead of going to SIT. Mm-hmm. So I went totally the opposite way. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Como vivía fuera del campus, no sabía cómo llegar, no sabía las calles, no sabía nada. Y aquí en Brattleboro hay nombres de las calles, pero en África no teníamos nombres. Le decías, si alguien te preguntaba cómo llegar, decías, hay una casa grande y la mía está a 6 de ella. Entonces fue muy difícil saber cómo ir. Hasta se perdió el primer día que fue a la escuela. Fue hacia otro lugar, totalmente opuesto a donde estaba la escuela.
And then I came with a child, so I have to go to school, but also I have to look for childcare.
Y también vine con mi hijo, entonces no solo tenía que yo ir a la escuela, pero tenía que encontrar alguien que cuidara a mi hijo.
And I have to figure out everything by myself.
Y tenía que averiguarlo todo yo sola.
Not knowing who do I ask, who who does help me. So I have to drop my child. I have first to know where the child care is, drop my son, go to school. After school, go back, pick up my son, go home, no grocery store where they are. It was, yeah, I felt like, I don't know if you guys have seen a movie, En el día New York or something like that. Yeah.
Sí, me perdía mucho, no sabía quién me podía ayudar, no sabía quién tenía la información que yo necesitaba. Entonces, primero tenía que encontrar la escuela del niño, luego dejarlo ahí, yo ir a la escuela, salir de la escuela, regresar a ir por él, y no había ningún súper de ida ni de regreso, entonces luego tener que encontrar eso también. Fue muy difícil, parecía como una película.
But not only the challenging part of it, but also the beauty of Vermont, because it's a rural US, it looks somehow as some part of Africa, the hills, the trees. And when I saw like the cow parade, I just sent pictures to say, yeah, I've landed in Africa, not in the US.
Y como Vermont se ve muy, muy diferente a otras partes de Estados Unidos y hasta se parece a veces a África con las colinas, con las montañas. Y cuando vi el Festival de las Vacas, le mandé foto a mis amigas diciéndole, no estoy en Estados Unidos, estoy en África.
That's great. Thank you, Dora. Thanks for that. It's funny, the similarities between places that we don't expect.
Es muy gracioso esas similitudes que no esperamos de los lugares.
I want to lead from some of the things that you all raised in your responses.
Quiero preguntarte algo nuevo que viene de las respuestas que nos han dado ustedes.
All of you have raised memories of ways in which you felt separated or alienated or unfamiliar with your surroundings.
Todos ustedes nos han dicho unas experiencias o cosas que recuerdan de no haberse sentido como que pertenecían aquí a este lugar.
And I'm wondering in retrospect if you can think of things that Vermont as an institution or a community of neighbors could have done.
Y quiero preguntarles si pensando atrás, piensan en algo que podemos haber hecho nosotros de Vermont como una institución o como la comunidad de vecinos que tienen.
That people could have done to alleviate that alienation or make you feel more supported in the beginning.
Que pudimos haber hecho desde el principio para que no se sientan que no pertenecen, que se sientan bienvenidos.
And one of those things, and you don't have to answer it this way, but one of the things I'm thinking about is language.
Y algo que yo estoy pensando, y no lo tienen que contestar así, pero algo que yo estaba pensando es la lengua.
At CASP, we often receive emails from community members offering to help asylum seekers learn English.
En CASP, muchas veces nos llegan llamadas y correos de personas que quieren ayudar a las personas que buscan asilo a aprender inglés.
And we appreciate that help, but it also puts the onus on the asylum seeker who's doing all kinds of other stuff and other transformations to do all the learning.
Y agradecemos ese tipo de ayuda, pero también eso le pide a las personas que buscan asilo que cambien cuando también están trabajando 40 horas a la semana y tienen muchas otras cosas que hacen, no solo estar ahí.
So one of the things we push for is for an increase in state-provided translation and interpretation.
Lo que queremos es que el Estado nos dé más servicios de traducción y de interpretación.
So I wonder if there are other ways in which people or the state could have made it easier for you when you first arrived.
Pregunto si hay otras formas en las que el Estado o la comunidad puede haberlo hecho más fácil para ti cuando llegaste.
Dora, yeah.
So I've seen places where they have like map cards, anybody from another state coming and looking for information if you're a newcomer here in Vermont. So I wish as internationals or anybody else could find like diverse information about this is Vermont. If you need this, if you need this, if you need that. It's so traumatizing coming here without knowing anything. Yeah, I remember one day, my first day in school, I sat in the class and I saw tears coming down. I didn't know why, and I just stood, went in the bathroom, cried. I said, God, if you don't help me, I'm gonna quit. And then I never went back in that class. I lost the class. It was a training. I couldn't go back. So emotion came from nowhere just because I was struggling.
Sí, quisiera que ya hay muchas cosas que las personas que vienen de fuera del estado les dan como un pamphlet que dice cosas sobre Vermont y ojalá eso también les dieran a las personas que vienen de fuera del país para decirnos dónde están las cosas, dónde podemos encontrar la información que necesitamos. Yo recuerdo un día, mi primer día de clase, que fui a clase y llegué y me senté y empecé a llorar. Y no sabía por qué, solo me fui al baño y lloré todo, lloraba y no podía parar y nunca regresé a esa clase. Es muy traumatizante venir y no tener ayuda.
Myra, thank you, Dora. Thanks for that.
I also think, maybe it's happening, but I feel like our Bradley Public Library has to play a focal role in having like once a month orientation for newcomers, along with offering some English learning classes. And we have great SAT program. TESOL professors who probably can be also involved in teaching foreigners, in teaching English to foreigners. And also I feel like some kind of info sessions about...
Myra, I'm going to stop you for just a second and let Christy interpret, okay? Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Yo creo que la biblioteca pública aquí en Brattleboro puede hacer de Estados Unidos que vienen aquí para que sepan qué hacer y también pueden tener eventos gratis donde los profesores de aquí pueden enseñar inglés y cosas así.
And also to have some info sessions on about like very basic stuff about social security, how to get social security, taxes, meeting with law enforcement people, pamphlets of different religious organizations in Brattleboro schools, and also have them in like at co-op and different places around the town, so people can, have this information. And
y también tener sesiones de información donde las personas pueden tener información sobre diferentes grupos religiosos, sobre las escuelas, sobre cómo cosas muy, muy normales y básicas que todos deberíamos de saber, pero que nadie te enseña.
And my last, point would be having more events, town events, inviting, speakers from different countries or musicians, artists. So people were, exposed to different cultures and different, music and art. So, yeah.
Y tener más eventos con personas que son de otros países que están hablando o que traen música, arte y cosas así para que todos estemos más expuestos a diferentes culturas y diferentes países e ideas.
Samba or Betty, did you want to answer this question? Thank you, Myra, for that. Betty, I saw your hand up, and Samba too, so it doesn't matter who goes first. Betty.
Bueno, pues yo la verdad conté con la ayuda en cuestión de escuela. Sí yo me reunía en la escuela para estudiar inglés
Yeah, I really relied on the help that I received, especially I went to school to learn English.
Sí, hasta la fecha me ha costado trabajo aprender, pero estoy haciendo el esfuerzo.
It's been really hard to learn, but I'm trying really hard.
Y pues hablando un poquito en cuestión del virus, ¿verdad? Que quisiéramos ya olvidarlo, pero que pues no podemos. Pero se presentó lo del virus, entonces todo como que se quedó en stand-by.
And then talking about the virus, which it changed everything and we all want to forget about it, but it's still here and it kind of made everything be on standby.
Pero las cosas, mientras uno quiera hacerlas, se puede, porque después yo tuve clases por Zoom, o sea que no hubo pretexto como para no seguir estudiando.
But if we want to do things, then there's no excuse not to do them. The class kept on going on Zoom, and so I kept studying.
A mí me proporcionaron la tarjeta de la biblioteca. No he ido porque pues apenas estamos saliendo del virus, pero espero visitarla para poder tener más conocimiento.
They gave me a library card, and I haven't been able to attend because of the virus, but I'm hoping to go one of these days and to get more knowledge.
Y por el virus, pues no he conocido muchos lugares, pero espero este año conocerlos. Creo que Vermont es muy grande. He conocido muchos latinos y eso me ha ayudado a sentirme más tranquila.
And I hope to visit more places now that the virus is almost gone, because I haven't had the chance to visit very many places, and Vermont seems very big. I've met a lot of Latinx people, and I really hope I get the opportunity to visit more places.
Gracias, Betty. Te invito a mi casa primeramente.
Thanks, Betty. I'll invite you to my house first.
Samba, did you want to answer that question?
Yeah, one thing I was going to say, I remember when I first came, they used to have a program called Vermont Adult Learning.
Cuando primero llegué tenían un programa que se llama Vermont Adult Learning, que es para adultos que aprendan aquí en Vermont.
And they used to have English as second language classes every day for all levels and all ages.
Tenían clases de inglés todos los días para todos los niveles y todo tipo de
So
clases.
I would hope that, that would come back in one way or another form, whether it's through the state or through the town.
Espero que eso regrese de alguna u otra forma, sea por la municipalidad o por SIT o algo.
And another thing I would like to say is that just as people, as a community, is not to assume and stop telling people, this is the Vermont way, this is how we are, and this is what we like.
Y como la comunidad, no hay que decir que solo hay una forma de ser y de actuar aquí en Vermont.
Because just imagine if you had to move to another country and learn a new culture, a new language, learn about 4 seasons, which I didn't know about. So I had no clue about, winter clothes, summer clothes, spring wear. Instead of making fun of me for wearing my traditional outfit, just tell me what I need to do.
Imagínate que tú te mudas a otro país y tienes que aprender cosas nuevas, como por ejemplo 4 estaciones, un nuevo idioma y cosas así. En vez de reírte de mí por usar mi ropa tradicional, ¿por qué no me dices qué es lo que debería de ponerme o usar ese día?
So basic starter, we could just, have a conversation with each other and get to know each other as human beings. That's all.
Entonces hay que solo hablar y tener conversaciones y conocernos de persona a persona.
Thank you for that, Samba. Yeah, I hear that a lot too. This is what makes Vermont, Vermont. This is the way we are, as if it's a fixed and static quantity.
Yo también escucho eso mucho, que esto es Vermont y así es Vermont y esto es lo que hacemos, como personas de Vermont, como si fuera algo estático.
Instead of being open to Vermont as a dynamic thing that's always changing.
En vez de estar abiertos a que Vermont es algo dinámico, que siempre está cambiando.
So I really appreciate everybody's responses to these questions.
Gracias por sus respuestas a estas preguntas.
Let me ask, shall I ask one more thing or shall I take a comment from Dora and then move into taking some questions? Sarah, we go until 1, right?
Correct. I think one of your last questions is appropriate. And
Okay, I see Dora had her hand halfway up, so let me
Great.
ask Dora first what she wanted to share.
Yeah, it's something I learned since I'm in Vermont. So I came from a place where when you are struggling to make a decision, you can ask a friend or a family. And then when you hear from the other person opinion, then you can, try to tell your mind. So when I ask, okay, Chris, go and...
Es algo que he aprendido aquí en Vermont, que es muy diferente de donde yo viví, donde yo crecí, que donde yo crecí, cuando tienes algún problema, no sabes qué decisión tomar, le preguntas a tu familia o a algún amigo, ellos qué piensan. Y cuando ellos te dicen, tú ya puedes decidir, tener más información sobre qué hacer.
Yeah, so when I try to ask a friend advice, none of them will give me an advice. And I will say, how can I
Yo le
manage
pregunté
this?
a algunos amigos aquí, cuando le pregunté a amigos aquí qué pensaban sobre mis problemas, si me daban algún tip sobre qué hacer, nadie me decía, no me querían decir nada.
And somebody told me that it's New England. So I don't want to change anybody or being in New England or not, but if just somebody requests an advice, it's just what Samba says, yeah, welcome the person or just have a conversation and talk to somebody. It doesn't really, change who you are on what you believe and what you stand for. So yeah, people are afraid to give advice when you need advice.
Si alguien te pregunta sobre qué pueden hacer, qué deberían de hacer sobre algo, solo diles, ayúdales a averiguarlo, ayúdales, aprende sobre ellos y eso no va a cambiar quién eres tú ni quiénes son ellos, solo vas a crear comunidad.
Yeah, thank you, Dora. I have found that too, that sometimes speaking directly is something that our communities aren't always used to.
Sí, yo también he visto que hablar directamente no es algo que aquí estamos acostumbrados a hacer.
So let me ask the final question that I have on my list.
Mi última pregunta
is, can you remember a time when you did feel welcomed to this community, and how can we create more of that kind of moment?
¿Puedes recordar algún momento en el que te sentiste bienvenido en esta comunidad? ¿Y cómo crees que podemos crear esos momentos para las personas que son nuevas aquí en Vermont?
Dora.
Yeah, I have a lot. So
Yo tengo
I felt welcome in Vermont. So when I came, my host came to Boston to pick me up from the airport. So he took off and came to pick me up. That was beyond my mind.
Cuando llegué, mi persona con la que me estaba quedando vino a Boston a recogerme del aeropuerto y dejó todo y solo vino por mí y eso me hizo sentir muy bien.
And that was my first time to meet him because he hosted me and I didn't know him. And yeah, so.
Esa fue mi primera vez conociéndolo y él me hizo hosting, pero yo no lo había conocido antes.
Another time is when students whom I was with were helping me with childcare. They will babysit my son when I was in school.
Y otra vez fue cuando los estudiantes de mi escuela me estaban ayudando a cuidar a mi hijo. Yo iba a la escuela y ellos venían a mi casa y me ayudaban a cuidarlo para que yo pudiera estudiar.
Yeah, so I feel home here because I met people before I came here, those who came to Africa, and we met. So I came, when they knew that I was here, they just immediately came to look for me.
Yo hice comunidad cuando yo llegué aquí de África, las personas sabían que era de África y las personas que son de África y que viven aquí vinieron a introducirse y hacer comunidad conmigo.
Those are the people who have kept me in Vermont or in Bradford until now.
Estas son las personas que han causado mi estancia aquí en Vermont hasta ahorita.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dora. Anybody else have a positive memory they want to share or an admonition of how we can make those happen some more? Samba, so you just unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say, for us, my family has been in Brattleboro for over 20 years now. So there's been a lot of great memories for us here. And now we are creating generations that will be part of this town and this state for a long time.
Mi familia ha estado aquí en Vermont, en Brattleboro, por 20 años. Entonces, hemos tenido muchas memorias muy felices aquí y ahora hasta estamos creando una nueva generación aquí en Brattleboro.
And I remember my mom used to sell at the farmer's market and how everyone used to love her food. And the whole town will stop me when I'm walking down the street or anywhere we are at the co-op, just to talk about how good the food is. So I
Mi
think
mamá cocinaba y vendía comida en el farmer's market, y todos amaban su comida, todos en esta ciudad llegaban y me paraban en los súper o en la calle y me decían que amaban la comida de mi mamá.
so, yeah, so I was going to say if more people coming from other cultures have the chance to do things like that and be more a part of the community, that will change the conversation a bit too.
Sí, y si más personas que vienen de otros países tienen la oportunidad de hacer lo mismo, creo que eso va a cambiar la cultura y el sentimiento aquí en esta ciudad.
Thank you, Samba. That's a great memory and a way of integrating with people, I think. Myra or Betty, do you have something that you want to add, Myra?
Yes, and as I mentioned, my first impression, and when I felt very welcome to Brattleboro community was, of course, SAT, my friends, my colleagues, my faculty, but also the one experience I had in Brattleboro when I really welcomed. Maybe it's not very experience you can have like in general. When I was volunteering at Brattleboro shelter for homeless people, and I had with my friend Cleve like night shifts, and how people who were homeless people, they were so grateful that me, a person from different country culture was was serving and being with them, and they were talking to me and saying thank you, and it was like really like touching and moving experience for me, for myself, and it helped me to look at myself even in different way. And unfortunately, we cannot volunteer at this shelter anymore, but I would love to be involved in this kind of connections with people in Brattleboro. So will help it not only I was helping people, they were helping me too at that, as a person, and just discovering myself. So it was a great experience for myself. Yeah.
Como dije anteriormente, cuando vine aquí, yo vine a SIT y me sentí muy bienvenida por mis amigos, por los profesores, por toda la comunidad de ahí. Pero desde entonces yo he hecho trabajo voluntario en un lugar que ayuda a las personas que no tienen casa. Y cuando estado de voluntaria ahí, me han dicho que están muy agradecidos de que hay alguien de otra cultura, de otro país, que les puede ayudar, que pueden pasar tiempo con ellos. Y eso me ha sentido a mí, me ha hecho sentirme muy bien y me ha hecho verme en una forma muy diferente. Y eso ha sido muy fantástico y es algo que me di cuenta que no solo les estoy ayudando yo, pero ellos me están ayudando a mí también. Y espero encontrar más oportunidades de hacer trabajo voluntario que es similar a eso.
Thank you, Myra. And I know we don't have time for it, but your response makes me think about the question we didn't get to, which is about how you each saw yourselves upon arrival contributing and making this community.
Gracias, Mayra. Y esa respuesta me recuerda de una pregunta que no les hicimos, que es ¿qué es lo que ustedes esperaban darle a esta comunidad cuando llegaron?
And I know, from knowing several of you personally, that you have given an enormous amount to this community and really helped, helped make us what we are and what we are becoming, which is not a static thing, but always changing and improving and diversifying.
Y conozco a algunos de ustedes personalmente y conozco su trabajo y sé que ustedes nos han dado mucho a esta comunidad y que nos han hecho no una comunidad estática, pero un lugar dinámico.
So just want to give, my thanks to each of you and to Sarah and especially to Christy for interpretation, which is hard work.
Muchas gracias a todos ustedes, a Sara y también a Christy, que sé que es un trabajo muy difícil.
And I wonder maybe if everybody wants to come off of mute and just show appreciation to our panelists who shared their personal stories today.
Si todos quieren venir off mute y darle muchas gracias a nuestros panelistas que vinieron hoy.
I know everybody's cheering, it's just we can't hear them.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know there are many more hours we could have of this conversation, and I hope that it continues in other places.
Please, Kate, there is something really I would like to say. Not that I want to, monopolize but if we are talking about increasing population in Vermont or attracting people to come to Vermont, there is something really I would like to mention about Vermont, especially maybe Brattleboro where I live. It's housing. So housing is so challenging here in Vermont. I remember when after school, I have to leave the host family and then I have to move by myself, my own wing. So an apartment was costing me $950. And at that time, my first job, I was making $1,200. So housing is really challenging here. If you want to really attract more people, there are no studio or one bedroom or 2 bedroom where can be affordable. So, and for me to learn into Wyndham Housing Trust, it took me really long from a friend who knew about Wyndham Housing, say, Dora, let's go to Wyndham Housing. That's where I applied, and that's where today I was able to be in a affordable housing. Second is being eligible for benefits like food stamp, Reach Up, or Medicaid. It's so hard for somebody who's not a citizen and who's not maybe, I don't know, who haven't lived in Vermont for 5 years. Everybody who has been here as a newcomer applying for Medicaid, you get denied because they told me I haven't lived in Vermont for 5 years. Yeah, my child, they will ask, was he born in the US? I say no. So you really miss opportunities because you are not a US citizen and you haven't lived in Vermont for 5 years. Like, Medicaid, affordable housing, or financial aid for school. You all know how school is really very expensive, or childcare. Then they ask you really proof or document that you don't even have when you're a newcomer here. Either you're an asylum seeker or an international student or anybody, it's so hard. You miss those opportunities. First, you don't know about the opportunities. Second, when you apply, you get denied because this and this reason. So I don't know really. And then talking about immigration, it takes time for an asylum seeker. For example, they say, and this is what really maybe the state can advocate for asylum seekers, because they say asylum court doesn't come to Vermont in winter, and you wonder why. Do we have really the worst winter in Vermont so that the asylum court can't really come here and look at these cases where you see like you do like 4 years without even having an interview at an immigration court, or appearing before the judge, and then you have to apply every 2 years for work permit, which costs almost today $500. How much are you making really to afford $500 for a work permit for 2 years? Another thing is well-paid job. If you don't speak the language, it's really hard to get a well-paid job, even if it's part-time. I remember when I was struggling looking for a job, somebody advised me, a friend of mine advised me, Dora, would you change your last name on your resume? I said, no, that's who I am. I can't really lie. He said, oh yeah, maybe if you get selected for interview, you can tell them, oh, I did this because I wanted a job. I said, no, whoever will give me a job will give me a job of who I am, not because I changed my last name. So another thing is, well-paid job, but also job for people who are not fluent in English, whom English is not their first language. So if we really need to advocate or to attract new people, it's all about an immigrant or an international will ask you, how much is an apartment there? This and this and this. So I know really Vermont have enough food. So providing really food for people who are new coming and who don't even have money or job, like Vermont Bread Company closed, and people who were there, like internationals or non-US, they're struggling getting jobs now. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, Dora. And I think I'm going to skip over interpretation, and just to make sure, I want to be conscious of people's time and let folks go, and we can do some interpretation closing out the meeting. But just want to say too that I know that, especially because we are doing this in multiple languages, there is so much we haven't covered. And just to encourage people to engage more in these conversations, I think it's something that in Vermont we are being encouraged by historical circumstance to ask these questions, and that it's high time. So I really appreciate everything that you all brought to the table. And thanks to the BDCC for organizing as well.
Thank you so much. And thank you to our panelists. Obviously we couldn't do this without you, and we really appreciate that you felt welcome enough to be open and share honestly with us about your experiences. So thank you so much. And thank you to people attending and listening. I think listening is very important. So please keep listening and keep asking good questions. We'll hopefully see you at our next session, which starts at 2. We have Susanna Davis presenting. So hopefully we'll see you there. Thank you, Samba, Dora, Betty, Christy, Myra, Kate. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day.
Yeah, thanks.